Hello everyone and welcome to College Readiness Online. How's everybody doing? Woo! Excellent. Get ready for college, folks, because that is what this class is all about. Now, this is going to be run pretty much like any traditional college course would be run, and I hope that this will give you all of the tools necessary to succeed in any college or university you choose to go to, whether it's hanging out here in state, going to a school where maybe all of your friends are, or maybe even striking out and going to some place completely different that you've never been before, all by your lonesome. Either way, you are going to be completely prepared by the time I'm through with you. I guarantee it. So first things first, because we are learning how to get ready and sort of learn all of the awesome things that college has to offer and how to succeed in any college class, I think it would probably be best to start by looking over the actual syllabus for the class and kind of sort of doing a little bit of a meta-analysis of the syllabus. Depending on the kind of high school that you're coming from, your classes may or may not give you a syllabus at the very beginning of the class. So you may already have experience with reading one of these, but every single college course is going to give you a syllabus at the beginning of every class. They might give it to you on a sheet of paper, or if it's an online class, it may be available online. Either way, make sure that you have a copy of that syllabus available at any time throughout the course of your course, because a lot of your most frequently asked questions will be answered in that exact document. The other important thing about the syllabus is that it is essentially a contract. It pretty much tells you what you're getting into before you decide to embark further on a course. When you register for a class, there is a certain sort of add-drop period, usually within the first week of the semester, during which you can add and drop classes without any sort of financial penalty to you, and you can kind of play around with your schedule a little bit. The great thing about this period is that for the first week, usually classes will go over the syllabus in depth so that you know what it is that you're getting into, and some classes will sort of rip into content right away. Others will take that first week period to make sure that all of the students are settling in before continuing on. Once you sort of get past that first week of the semester, whatever is in the syllabus, you pretty much bought into it, which means that by the end of the semester, there is no excuse for not knowing what the course requirements are, because if it is a good syllabus, all of those things will be completely laid out for you. So make sure that you read your syllabus and you know what you're getting into, because I've personally had experience where in the first week of classes I registered for a Spanish literature course that I thought was going to be really awesome to take, and then I looked at the requirements and saw how much they needed me to read, and I thought that, well, considering the other classes that I have to take for my major and all of the work I have to do for those, perhaps it might not be best for me to register or continue with this class at this point, because the requirements might be a little bit too heavy for what it is that I'm looking for that given semester, so you then drop the class. If I would have continued on with that course, I would have been pretty much responsible for everything in that syllabus. Now, the interesting thing is that even though the syllabus is technically a contract, a lot of professors will put in the provision in their syllabi that basically states that it is possible through whatever act that the syllabus might need to be modified. So even though it is technically a contract, it may not necessarily be set in stone. So make sure that you know what you're getting into. And make sure that you keep track of the professor's information, which is usually at the very, very top of a syllabus. So let's go through mine. I am Professor Elisa Melendez. Because I am at the moment adjunct faculty at Doral College, I don't technically have an office or office hours, but if for whatever reason you really want to meet me in person at Doral College, shoot me an email right there. That is actually my personal email. Not a lot of professors will give you their personal email. They'll usually have a reserved faculty email address. And I do have a Doral College email address, but I prefer to get your emails through my personal email, because then that will guarantee that I get it. I have my phone on me at all times, so you will not be able to miss me. You will be able to reach me. Now, if for whatever reason you want some face-to-face interaction, but you can't necessarily make it to Doral College to make a physical appointment, you can reach me on Skype. Send me an email ahead of time because I may not be signed on to Skype all the time, but if you do want to set up a Skype meeting with me, you may, and you can add me. That is my Skype username right there. So the next sort of part of a syllabus talks about what the course is and what it is designed to do. In a nutshell, this class is made to make you a very, very effective student for your collegiate career. Another section of your syllabus will deal with required or recommended textbooks and resources. That is actually a very, very key word to look at when you're looking at your syllabus, whether a book is recommended or required, because it will basically tell you whether you need to buy it or whether it only suggests that you buy it, which can actually save you a little bit of money in the long run. Now, for the purposes of this class, I take a lot of my lectures and a lot of your exercises and your journaling from this particular textbook, Robert S. Feldman, Power Learning Strategies for Success in College and Life. If you look up that book, there are many different editions of it. What I would suggest is don't buy the textbook. You don't necessarily need the textbook for this particular class, but if you do want to sort of read a little bit extra and really make sure that you are prepared for your final exam, look up that book and look up the resources on the companion website. Basically, if you just Google Power Learning, you'll be able to find some great online resources to help you out. But you don't necessarily need to buy it. That is why it's recommended, but not required. So this is the way that the course is going to work. Basically, I want you to treat each module on Brain Honey as its own week. So this first week, we are going to learn about power learning and what power learning means. And by the end of that week, I want you to have completed this lecture, which, good job, because you're on your way, and write your journal article for that week. Now, take note that not every week has a journal article attached to it. So sometimes I'll give you a little bit of a break, and other times you will have to actually write a journal and do other stuff. So this week is the week starting January 6th. I probably should have gone into this a little bit later, but we'll get into exactly what the journals are. So, especially because this is sort of a class on trying to get ready for college, and I want you to be able to succeed in this class as much as possible, please continue to refer to the syllabus if you need any help trying to figure out what week we're on. All of those are listed right here. The good thing is that right here, look at this. This is my favorite part. Spring break! Yay! I'm actually giving you a break on spring break. Now, during your spring semesters, in whatever college you decide to go to, your professor may not be as generous with spring break, and in fact may sometimes assign work during spring break. I've known professors that actually assign work for a spring semester class that you have to do during the Christmas break before the spring even starts. So make sure that you read your syllabus and make sure that you know what you're getting into in terms of your workload and what is going to be expected of you and when. Other important dates to look at when it comes to your syllabus is when your projects are due and when your exams are. So for the purposes of this course, week 15, that starts April 21st, is when your project is due. The requirements of that project are on Brain Honey right now. And your final exam week is the week after that. So you will get an entire week to complete your final exam online. So this is how your grade works, and usually a syllabus will have an exact breakdown of how your grade shakes out, and some of them may even have a handy-dandy grading scale for you to look at. So first off, for this course, you will have journals, which are 100 points. There are about 10 journals at 10 points each, so you can do the math. The journals are pass-fail, so you either do them well or it's like you didn't do it at all. There is no partial credit given. So in order to receive full credit, in order for you to get your 10 points, I want you to really dig deep into these journals and answer the questions fully and completely. You should try to aim for a paragraph or two per question part, but a lot of these, if not all of these, journals are asking you to speak from your own personal experience. So you should be able to, and you should definitely feel comfortable with, writing about yourself and digging deep. I believe that I should be the only one able to see your journals, so don't worry about, maybe being judged by other students or, putting stuff out there. I'll be the only one who gets to see it, and trust me, I've seen it all, right? So feel free to really dig deep and speak from the heart on these, and you should be able to get your 10 points. Easy peasy. The next requirement is your project, which is another 100 points. So you should have a look at the Brain Honey website for the exact requirements for this project, but basically what the project entails is that I personally don't know where it is that each of you are in terms of finding your college of choice. So whether you have decided on a college already or whether you're trying to choose from 3 or 5 different ones, who knows? But part of being ready for college is researching your college. And what I am going to ask of you for this project is for you to really do research on whatever college you may or have already decided to go to, so that you can walk into that college on the very, very first day and know exactly where it is that you're going, exactly where it is that you can find your resources, all that jazz. You're going to walk into that college and it's going to be like you're a senior instead of a whatever you're going to end up being by the time you get there. And then there's your final exam. So one of the skills that I'm going to teach you is how to take tests, right? So I should give you a test in order to test how well you can take tests. So this test is a 50-question exam, and each question is worth 2 points, and it will be a cumulative exam, which means, and that is a very, very key word, cumulative, which means that I will be testing you on every single thing you've learned throughout this semester. So that is a very important question to ask your professors if they give exams in your class, is whether the exams will be cumulative or not. So 100 points for each assignment gives you 300 points, right? And then here is how the grading scale shakes down. In order to get an A, you need at least 270 points. To get a B, 240 to 269, and so on and so forth. Then we'll usually have some course objectives, all the things that you'll be able to do when you are super, super awesome by the end of this course. Of course, the academic integrity statement, don't cheat, is the Cliff Notes version of that. Do not cheat whatsoever. And depending on how harsh the academic integrity policy is, whether it's Doral College or whether it's whatever college of your choosing, violating academic integrity can get you anything from an F in the class to getting completely kicked out of school. Even at the point of getting a graduate degree, there have been stories of people that get doctorates that, years down the line, they get their doctorates stripped away from them because they find out that they cheated on their dissertation somehow, right? So, don't do that, is basically the answer to that one. So there's your syllabus. I have your syllabus posted and available on Brain Honey so that you can reference it at any time. And before you email me any questions, make sure that you give another close reading to the syllabus, because chances are you might have the answer to your question right here in this document. Cool. So let's get started and do some actual power learning. So power learning is actually a kind of really handy dandy acronym to illustrate how it is that we're going to be thinking about all of the different concepts that we're going to learn this semester, whether it's dealing with stress or taking tests, or even things like public speaking. So what is power learning? First off, let's start off with why it is that we're thinking about college and trying to get ready for college in the first place. Why is it that people go to college? And, actually have a minute to think about why it is that you're thinking about going to college. Is it something that your parents just told you to do? Or maybe you may be the first person in your family to go to college and get a degree. Maybe that's just kind of what you learned through socialization, that is just the thing that you do. Maybe you want to make some money, so you need a college degree. Or maybe you just want to learn a little bit more about the world. Maybe it's all of these. Maybe it's none of these. So why are you here? Some people definitely like to expand their horizons and want to sort of think about the world better and improve their intelligence, which is something that college definitely does. You can learn how to be a better communicator, and especially depending on the college that you go to, you may be put in situations that you may not necessarily have had before. Dealing with a classroom full of 200 people, maybe having all sorts of group projects or in-class presentations. You'll be put into all sorts of situations that will make you a better communicator. Definitely some exposure to diversity, especially depending on which college you end up going to. I used to teach at Miami-Dade College, and there was one student that I had that told me that he was from Iowa, and he explicitly wanted to come to Miami-Dade College and study in Miami specifically because he wanted to be exposed to way more diverse people, whether those were races, religions, political opinions, all sorts of fun stuff like that. He wanted to meet people that weren't necessarily like him, and he thought that Miami was the best place to do that. So one cool thing about college is that it can expose you to a diversity of people and their opinions. You definitely learn how to adapt to new situations in college, especially if you're even living on your own for the first time in your life, having to deal with people with differing opinions, having to sort of navigate your way through filling out forms, paying for your classes, all sorts of new situations that you wouldn't have even anticipated. And being in that college environment is a really good way for you to adapt to those new situations really quickly. And learning is lifelong. Once you get through with college and you sort of close your last book, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've stopped learning. College is one way to sort of continue that learning process. I've had students as young as 15. I have had students as old as their mid-40s, right? So going back to college, even after a long hiatus, is one way to sort of expand your horizons and have a commitment to lifelong learning. So your first journal, your first discussion, the first part of it talks about your college expectations. And a lot of us have some ideas, whether it's from parents, friends, family, even, television shows and movies, about what college is supposed to be like and the things that you're supposed to do in college. So, what I want you to do for the first part of your journal is to tell me what you've heard about college from other people. That it's hard, that maybe it's the only way that you can get a decent job with some money, maybe that the only purpose of college is to, I don't know, go to a fraternity and get drunk or something. What have you heard from other people that college is supposed to be about? I also want you to tell me what it is that you yourself expect from the college experience, right? What do you expect is going to happen? Do you expect it to be expensive? Do you expect it to be fun? Do you expect it to be hard? What do you expect from college? And then what is it that you want from college? Because what you expect from college may actually be quite different than what you want college to be for you. So tell me all of those things in part 1 of your journal. Now let's get to this power learning thing once and for all. It's a really, really handy dandy acronym. And the P stands for prepare. O is for organize. W is for work, or work, depending on how you pronounce it. E is for evaluate, and R is for rethink. So by the end of this class, you will have that power acronym stuck in your head. I promise you. Haven't been able to forget it. So, how do we prepare? Basically anything, whether it's a test that you're going to take, or a presentation that you're going to give, or even something like managing stress, you get to go through these 5 steps. It's actually a pretty handy way of kind of going about any major thing you're going through in your life. So first we start with preparing. And one major part of preparing is setting goals and setting expectations. So there are different kinds of goals that you can set for yourself, whether it's for your academic career or even for the rest of your life. One of those are long-term goals. So long-term goals are things that are months, semesters, years in advance. And it's great to set goals because it sort of helps motivate you to get things done. Now, one major thing that you need to know about long-term goals is that you have to keep them realistic. I could conceivably make a long-term goal of being an astronaut. Doesn't necessarily mean it's actually going to happen, sadly, because it's not really realistic. I'm afraid of heights, and I get motion sickness, so probably not very realistic for me to want to be an astronaut. Keep your goals realistic. A good long-term goal would be something like, hey, I don't know, graduating college, getting a college degree. That sounds like a pretty good long-term goal. And within those long-term goals, you also have short-term goals. These are things that are hours, days, and weeks ahead. And while long-term goals are supposed to be realistic, your short-term goals need to be controllable. And you need to be a little flexible too. Because we will go into this when we get into time management. It is entirely possible to overschedule yourself and make things unrealistic that way by asking yourself to do way too much in any given day, right? So make them controllable and make them flexible. For part 2 of this week's journal, I want you to set some goals for yourself, whether it's for your academic career, maybe it's for a long-term hobby that you have, maybe it's for the job that you eventually want. So set some long-term goals for me, and then set some of the short-term goals that are going to help you get there. So if your long-term goal is that you want to graduate with a college degree, then your short-term goal might be something like get a 10 on this journal. Do really well in your classes. And also goals have to be a little bit specific, right? So instead of saying, I'm going to do fabulously in all my classes, set a very specific goal for yourself. Say, I will have the goal of ending every single class in this semester with a grade of B or higher. That is a specific short-term goal. A long-term goal would then be something like, I will finish the B whatever bachelor's you end up getting with a 3.0 GPA or higher, right? So give me some long-term goals you have, and then give me the short-term goals that are going to enable you to get to that point. So you've prepared, you have set your goals, you've written excellent journals, I'm sure, and now we get to organize. There are different kinds of organization. The first one being physical organization. So what are the physical materials that you need? So let's say that we are preparing for a class that day. Say that we're preparing to take notes. What are the physical materials that you might need in order to do that? Maybe it's a pen and paper, maybe it's a stylus and an iPad, maybe it's a tape recorder, right? So these are all of these sort of physical, tangible materials that you need in order to complete any given task. Then we have mental organization. And mental organization is organize all of your thoughts and what it is that you need to know before going into any situation. Then we work. Working is actually doing the thing we set out to do. And in order to do work, we need to be motivated to do stuff. And what is motivation? Motivation is the inner power and psychological energy that directs and fuels behavior. If you pretty much have had a day where you have sort of been on the couch all day and not really wanted to do much of anything, you have experienced a complete lack of motivation. I know I have. So, one thing to remember is that if you put in some effort, you will succeed. You will succeed in doing something. And an important thing to do is to take responsibility for both of your failures and your successes. So, if something doesn't end up going well, maybe you don't get a good grade on an exam or something, take responsibility for your failure. Did you not study enough? Maybe your notes weren't as clear as perhaps they should have been. Maybe you didn't prepare enough for the actual test-taking process that day. Take responsibility for things that you might have done wrong. One thing that people don't do enough, though, is they often don't take responsibility for their successes. Sometimes they'll blame doing well on something as just, I just got lucky, or oh, the test was easy, versus, hey, I knew the material and I actually studied and it all worked out, right? So take responsibility for any failures you may have throughout the course of your life, but also take some responsibility for successes, and don't forget to pat yourself in the back every once in a while when you deserve it. Think positively. I know it's hard sometimes, but it helps. Try and think positively about the work that you're doing. As we may learn later when it comes to taking tests or taking notes or time management, if you start to think negatively and think that you're not going to do well at something, oftentimes you won't put in any effort, which means you won't do well at something, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So try to think positively about your experience as much as you can. And if you think positively and think good thoughts, you're probably going to be motivated to put in the effort it takes to succeed in anything you put your mind to. And one thing that I know I have a lot of trouble with, so keep in mind, I am teaching this to you, doesn't necessarily mean that I take my own advice very often, but one thing that you do need to accept is that you can't control everything. And it's sometimes hard, especially when you're in a situation like this where you're taking all sorts of AP classes, you're taking this one online, all sorts of scheduling conflicts, extracurricular activities. It can be hard to manage everything, and you need to accept that you can't control everything. And sometimes, if there is something that is out of your control, one of the best ways to not necessarily stress out about it is to say, hey, if it is out of my control, then I have no reason to worry about it. Because I can't control it. I can't do anything at this moment to fix it. So let me put it out of my mind and put my focus on something else that I can control. You can't control everything. You can't control the weather. You can't necessarily control what your teacher is going to be like or what your workload is going to be like. But take responsibility for the things that you can control and accept that you may have to work around some situations that you can't. So once you've done whatever it is that you set out to do, then it's time to evaluate yourself. And when you evaluate, you basically try to judge how well your actual work matches the goals that you set out at the beginning. How well did you do? So first things first, congratulate yourself because you did it, right? So you always deserve a pat on the back when you're able to follow through with something that you wanted to do. Then when evaluating yourself, be fair, right? Don't be too harsh on yourself, but at the same time, don't give yourself too much credit. Basically, be fair with yourself. And when you're judging any work that you're doing, you can think about it in two ways. You can judge your work based on whether it fits the requirements of your current professor, right? So look at the syllabus and look at all of the things that your current professor has told you about what they personally expect from your work, and make sure that your work lines up with whatever it is that they want. And another way to evaluate is you can evaluate based on your previous professors and whether your work would have fit in with any one of their requirements, right? So maybe you had a particularly harsh professor that may be harsher than your current professor, right? Maybe more of a stickler for things like, say, grammar when you're writing a paper. If you had that professor, do you think that paper would have made that professor happy? Maybe, maybe not. So judge your work and be fair. Don't give yourself too much credit, but don't beat yourself up either. And last things last, you rethink things. And rethinking things is all about critical thinking. You reanalyze whatever it is that you did. You analyze the process of whatever work it is that you did, and you question basically all of the steps along the way. What are the things that you could have done differently? If you were completing a test, when you rethink, you sort of say, I didn't necessarily do as well as I thought I would. Maybe next time I should start studying maybe 2 weeks in advance. Or maybe next time I should form a study group with a couple of my classmates and see if we can bounce questions off each other. Maybe that time when I was sick, I probably should have gotten the notes from one of my classmates. Or I don't know, my stomach was rumbling so hard when I was taking the test that I couldn't concentrate on answering any of the questions. Next time, I'll eat breakfast before I take another test, right? So, rethinking is looking back on your work, looking back on how you did, and seeing all of the things that you could have done differently. So, I hope that throughout the course of this semester, whether it's taking notes, managing your time, getting your money right, or dealing with stress and wellness, whatever it is, you can employ all of these strategies. You prepare, you organize, you work at it, evaluate, and then rethink. Once you're said and done, doing whatever it is that you're going to do, keep these 3 things in mind. First, that tomorrow is another day, and that there are plenty of hours in every day, and every new day brings another new opportunity to work at it, right? If it's late at night, you're sleep deprived, tomorrow is another day. Practice some self-care, get some sleep, have a good breakfast, and start refreshed. Tomorrow is another day. Also, know when to stop, because it is definitely possible to overthink the rethinking process. And sometimes you need to stop rereading all of the answers on a test and just turn the thing in. Maybe you've tried editing your paper so much that words start to lose their meaning. Know when to stop, back away, submit the work. Things aren't going to be 100% perfect every single time. So it's better to put in good work and be confident and turn things in and get your evaluation later than to overthink things and edit things so much that you end up, shooting yourself in the foot, right? And then lastly, use what works. If you've had success with a test-taking strategy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you really, really like taking your notes using an outline, then there's necessarily no reason you need to switch, right? If you really like using a paper agenda in order to manage your time, there's no need to get something in a digital fashion if that is what works for you. Use what works. It's cool to try new things, but if there is one thing that works, keep sticking with it, right? So, I hope that you have had a fun experience so far getting ready to get ready for college. I'm looking forward to seeing your journals and learning about why it is that college is important to you, and I'll see you all next week.